place where everyone has high expectations for their own performance, where everyone takes pride in their work and products, where everyone has freedom to grow and contribute to their fullest ability. Personal growth will come through trust, listening, learning, improving skills, taking risk, accepting responsibility and accountability, and by setting goals that stretch our capabilities. By emphasizing individuals and teams first, I'm convinced that outstanding team performance will follow, that McDonnell Douglas will become more than just a place to earn a living. And now let's review our 1989 results. Financially, it was the worst year we've ever had. And because of so many unusual accounting procedures, describing our results is a confusing process. We ended the year with net earnings of only $219 million, compared to $350 million in 1988. But included in our 1989 earnings was a $179 million gain resulting from a new tax accounting procedure. And we netted an additional gain of $77 million from the sale of the network systems portion of the information systems business. Now, if we remove that gain, we're left with a $37 million loss. However, included in our results are 12 write-downs and write-offs totaling $219 million, which did not entirely result from our 1989 operations. If we take them out, we're back up to earnings of $182 million. Finally, we had several unusual gains related to commercial aircraft, amounting to $42 million. Subtract that amount and we're back down to earnings of only $140 million. Although the bookkeeping is confusing, one thing should be very clear. Our financial performance was not good. Looking at each of our segments, in combat aircraft, we had improved earnings on the F-15 and FA-18 and reduced ATF cost sharing. But these gains were more than offset by $137 million in write-offs in helicopter programs, principally due to underestimated material costs and inventory write-downs on the Apache. Transport aircraft had $5 million in fourth quarter earnings and showed a small profit for the last 6 months of '89. But cost estimate increases on the C-17 and T-45 programs, obsolete inventory and close-down costs for the DC KC-10 line, and continued investment in the MD-11 contributed to a $222 million loss for the year. A laser communications write-off and tighter pricing on the Tomahawk cruise missile program crimped earnings in missiles, space, and electronics, while good performance by McDonnell Douglas Systems Integration contributed to earnings in the other category. Many of you wrote that you appreciated seeing how we stacked up against competition. Here's how we did in sales. As you can see, we ranked third in the industry in sales volume. In fact, we would have been well ahead of Rockwell except for their automobile parts sales. But when it came to earning a profit on those sales, we were not nearly as good, despite our large gains on the sale of network systems and the tax accounting changes. Likewise, our profit margins on sales are far short of the 5% a leading aerospace company should have. Despite our terrible financial performance, 1989 was not all bad. We launched our total quality management system and are through the initial disruptive phase. We are now learning and improving, developing teams and partnerships. Already we are seeing improving cycle times, increasing quality, and greater productivity in many places around MDC. And our commercial transport backlog continues to grow. At the end of the year, it was $23.5 billion, a growth of 43% since 1988. And in 1990, we have already picked up additional major new customers for the MD-11, Singapore Airlines and KLM Royal Dutch Airlines. However, on the defense side, we continue to face a declining budget and the probability that several of our programs will be stretched or phased out entirely. We are doing our best to minimize those losses. We are determined to remain the U.S. government's best defense contractor and to come through this decline stronger than ever in defense capability and contracts. In December, with our platter overflowing at DAC and with potentially flat and declining prospects in our St. Louis-based fighter business, we announced the transfer of the T-45 training systems program to McDonnell Aircraft Company. This frees up additional people at Long Beach and Palmdale to meet the expanding needs of our transport programs, and at the same time provides additional work for our experienced St. Louis workforce. We will continue to look for ways to share the load in order to keep our workforce as productive and stable as possible. Another significant December event was the first flight of the helicopter company's NOTAR helicopter. This remarkable new technology uses low-pressure air instead of a conventional tail rotor for anti-torque control. The NOTAR technology will also be used on a brand new, larger twin-engine helicopter, the MDX, expected to fly in 1992. Next up, we're off to Long Beach for a close-up look at the new MD-11 jetliner. But first, a word from our sponsor.
I work for McDonnell Douglas. Since I never had any training in rigorous software testing, I thought it would be a good idea to take this course. When I got back to the project, I took the time and put together a slide presentation. Not only was I very satisfied that I could learn and teach, but I could see how the people on the project profited from it.
People with the power to do a better job build a better product. McDonnell Douglas, a company of leaders.
On Wednesday, January 10th, the newest generation wide-body jetliner from McDonnell Douglas, the MD-11, lifted off from Long Beach Airport for its first flight. The new tri-jet flew to Yuma, Arizona for 10 months of certification testing. First flight was the culmination of the skills, intellect, and hard work of thousands of our teammates and suppliers. 90 Days visited Douglas Aircraft Company a few weeks before first flight and arrived just in time for engine tests.
MD-11 is certainly a derivative of the DC-10. It is 18.6 feet longer. It has greater thrust engines, additional or greater load capacity. It has state-of-the-art electronics. It has an all-glass cockpit. The pilots or the flight crew get their information off of CRTs rather than analog gauges. DC-10 and the MD-11 are known as tri-jets. Beyond that, other than the diameter, they're very dissimilar. It has winglets, whereas the DC-10 does not. We have lots of state-of-the-art materials on the airplane in terms of carbon epoxy or composite material. The horizontal stabilizer is 30% smaller than the DC-10, and it contains 2,000 gallons of fuel, whereas the 10 does not have a wet horizontal. It's imperative that we get this airplane up in order for us to accomplish our goals of early fall deliveries.
We didn't have too good a day. We got through the hydraulic start. We went back through and picked up a couple places on that.
We are, in one manner of the speaking, developing the airplane as we're building it. On the first article airplane, naturally, we run into a few interfacing problems, no fit conditions, things like that flare up occasionally in this operation, and we have to back up, make adjustments to the design, then get the new part or the software change or the wiring changes or whatever that might be, and implement it, and then refunction the system and see to it. Everything we do on that airplane has to be covered by some sort of document. And when we present to FAA, whether it's in this case, we're presenting them a certificate for a first article aircraft, which is a lot more involved, but even on a normal production aircraft, you have to account for all this paperwork to convince them that